Time to let it rip. A lot to talk about. First up, are we getting our stimulus checks? If we are, when and how much? That problem, really, Congress, they've stalled. What's going on here? Joining me now, two members of Congress. First, Republican Congressman Paul Mitchell from Macomb and St. Clair County, Democratic Congresswoman Haley Stevens from Oakland County. First of all, thank you both. First question, Congresswoman Stevens, why have talks stalled and when are they going to get picked back up?
Well, look, you mentioned the stimulus checks, Charlie, and these are largely very bipartisan, particularly for low and middle income earners. This is something that the House voted on months ago, and we're on a 24-hour notice to get back to the floor and vote. And it's something also that I'm hearing from constituents on, right? We need pragmatic, bipartisan solutions. We've got bipartisan consensus on these stimulus checks. Let's get this done for the American people. Let's also address some of the structural improvements that need to be made from the first round. Some people still didn't get those checks. I just sent a letter to the IRS inquiring about some of the hiccups and the lack of response that we are used to getting as members of Congress when we're trying to represent. Do you believe, though, that both sides of the aisle really want a second stimulus package? And if so, how much money are we actually talking about? Look, these are obviously tough times. We're in choppy waters. You know, I'm spending a lot of time working with our schools, our parents, our educators. We've got 30 million plus people still out of work. We've got people with scaled back hours. We've got people navigating the reality if they contract coronavirus. Our numbers are still not where they need to be in terms of being, out of the clear. And so, yes, we need to stabilize our economy. Yes, we need to act. If you look at the CARES legislation that we did, the first big coronavirus package, that was triage legislation. We're now moving into stability and continuity, but people still need that certainty, and that's what I'm working for every single day, Charlie. All right, let me bring in Congressman Paul Mitchell. Same question to you. Do you believe that the Democrats want to approve stimulus checks? And again, are we talking $1,200, more or less, Congressman Mitchell?
Well, I agree with Haley. It's not the issue of stimulus checks. The Democrats are holding out for is their version of the remainder of that. Let me explain. They want to continue $2,400 a month and supplemental unemployment compensation for whoever's not working. Now, I agree we need to do something, and there's a variety of proposals around that. But they want $600 a week in addition to state unemployment as long as they deem necessary. They want $1 trillion to be given to governors across the state municipalities for anything they want to spend it on. Now, the Republicans and the president were committed to over $100 billion to go to schools, for example. We committed to a variety of money for state municipalities for first responders and folks that need assistance and teachers. But as our governor in Michigan has said, she wants the money she believes she needs with absolute flexibility to spend it any way she wants. And that's simply not going to happen. But that's the conflict, Charlie. And until that's resolved, we're at gridlock at this point in time.
So there is gridlock. We don't dispute that. Yes. But is this something, either stimulus checks, unemployment continuation, aid to the states, is this something that if Congress can't agree, that the president can just sign an executive order?
No, the president can only do limited things, Charlie. For example, let's be honest about this. The payroll tax deferral is just a deferral. He can defer it for up to a year under the law. But in fact, it doesn't magically go away. I'm skeptical of the impact of a payroll tax deferral in terms of either getting raises to people or really impacting hiring. I've never understood the administration's adherence to that idea. And I told Navarro that multiple times. But they are, and that's kind of silly in my opinion. But he can only do executive orders that impact it on the margins because he can't spend money that doesn't exist. And what it requires is money. How much money, you asked earlier? Somewhere around $1 trillion to $1.2 trillion more is what we're going to end up spending if we agree. We already have over $26 trillion in national debt. This is getting out of hand in a hurry.
All right, let me ask Congresswoman Stevens, is it fair conceptually that some people were actually making more money, stimulus money, unemployment money, than they were when they were working? Is that fair?
Well, I first, Charlie, want to thank my colleague, Congressman Mitchell, for standing up for hardworking Michiganders, Social Security, and Medicare. That is something we shouldn't ever seek to touch, and that's certainly what happens when we start talking about payroll taxes and the like and how they get paid for. So let's preserve the earned benefits of hardworking Michiganders, hardworking Americans, and then let's look at reality in terms of the question that you just asked, with tens and tens of millions of people unemployed throughout this country. Certainly in Michigan, we're ready to get back to work. We want to get back to work safely. I know people have been furloughed. Our manufacturers have been coming back online, calling their workforce back. Our teachers who care so much about their students and that in-classroom experience want to be there, and they want to be there safely. And so when we look at our unemployment system, one, we do need some structural improvements to unemployment. I don't know many people who this has worked for. And then two, we want to make sure that that safety net is there for people, but that we also have a path to get back to work. Last time I checked, Charlie, I'm in the party of jobs, all right? I want people tied to a job. I want them going back to work, and I want them employed.
Charlie,
go ahead.
First,
go ahead, Congressman.
There isn't a single Social Security check or benefit that's threatened by the executive order the president's done. And if we're going to talk about this, Haley, let's not use fear that seniors are suddenly going to have their Social Security taken away, because you and I both know better. So let's not use that for the argument of what should and shouldn't happen.
Social Security is not on the table. That's going to be preserved. No one's going to touch it.
It's not going to impact it. The question is how we pay for it if it goes through the deferral. I went to school in economics and public policy. I don't think it's going to improve economics at all. But the reality is to go around having talking points that the Democrats are putting out that is threatening people's Social Security. We need to stop governing by fear. And that's what's happened with this. That's what's happened to some extent with this COVID thing. We need to take a step back, because Americans deserve better than be frightened.
Speaking of fear, Congressman Mitchell, the president is purposely, seems to be, stalling mail service, which could have an effect on absentee ballots and all kinds of other things. Is that true?
I just tweeted about it, and it's online. I think the Postal Service is now threatening to hold the election hostage. There have been issues the Postal Service has had for a long period of time in terms of their benefits and a variety of things. Yes, their revenue's down. Yes, they need assistance, but they're holding it hostage, saying, well, if we don't get our $25 billion with a B dollars, we can't assure you we're going to deliver the ballots. It's one more group holding the election, trying to threaten the election. They're going to get their share like everybody else in this. I actually had a trucker send me a text that they want a waiver on the federal excise tax on diesel because they pay X amount a year, and they think it's only fair. Where does it stop that everyone wants their share of, they think, the federal pie, because it's now the Christmas tree?
So you wouldn't give the post office anything?
I give the post office some money, but I've asked, show me where the $25 billion is going, and I haven't gotten an answer.
Congresswoman Stevens, has the post office been, for lack of a better word, mismanaged for years?
Yeah. Well, look, we also don't want to govern by fear, Charlie. That's certainly no way to be. We want to listen to public health guidelines. We want to listen to science, and we want to be optimistic. And I think that optimism and inspiration is all around us, particularly coming out of the Michigan workforce and those who stepped up to the industrial call to action to make the personal protective equipment when our auto industry was shuttered, our postal workers who deliver in rain, sleet, snow, extreme heat sometimes, and now in a pandemic. And that's a workforce that we have really got to applaud and remind everyone they were part of the frontline workforce, just alongside a lot of individuals who were either working at our grocery store, and God bless all of our fabulous doctors, nurses, and on our hospital workers. And so in terms of what we're dealing, though, with the post office, Charlie, it's responsible management. It's not just throwing a bunch of money at it, but it's also making sure we've got a postal service that can deliver prescription drugs and meet its charge.
Haley, where's the money going to go? I've asked repeatedly. I've asked directly of folks that put it in the act that went out of the House. Tell me what it's going to pay for. No one's been able to explain it.
Well,
right.
the Board of Governors, bipartisan Board of Governors, Paul, I think, as you know, has talked about the need for that $25 billion. And we've already seen, I mean, just yesterday in my own household, we got 3 late deliveries. And this has been going on for a long time. We got to get the restructuring experts to the table.
Is the election in jeopardy, at least the absentee ballots? Congressman Stevens, are you worried that people are not going to be, their vote will not count? If they mail
look,
it?
Charlie, a lot of people talk about the polls and worrying about polls being askew. I am concerned about everyone's vote being counted fairly. I think that's something we've got to look at and take very seriously. I'm in conversation with our clerks in terms of some of the changes that they've experienced, and also reminding people, if you are voting absentee, to get that ballot in early. Do not wait to the last minute. You've got plenty of time to get that ballot in. They're coming out next month. Get it done. Listen to the experts. Talk to your clerk. Drop it off.
Real quick, Congressman Mitchell, should we be, I don't say fearful, but worried that if we mail our ballot in, it might not count?
Well, I think as Haley said, I think you need to mail them early or drop them off. The clerk's office can accept them. You can pull by, drop it in a slot. So there's a variety of options you have for your ballot to mail in if you don't want to go to the polls, which, frankly, I did in the primary in August, early August.
We've got to get the two of you back. We have a lot more to talk about here. But listen, I thank you, panel. I thank you. Get the stimulus check. Get it done. Why not? Get it done. All right.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, coming up.